The late afternoon sun filters through the gauze curtains of my childhood bedroom, illuminating the same faded floral wallpaper that's been peeling at the corners since I was in high school. I run my fingers along the worn wooden dresser that served as my anchor through countless visits home to Edina, noting how the scratches and water rings tell the story of a room that's been frozen in time while everything else in this house has been transformed into something magazine-worthy. The contrast isn't lost on me as I listen to the sounds of my family gathering downstairs in their newly renovated kitchen, preparing for another holiday dinner where my living situation will inevitably become a source of entertainment. My phone buzzes with a Slack notification from my team at Sterling Consulting. Even on Thanksgiving weekend, the financial services industry doesn't pause for family holidays. I'm midway through reviewing a digital transformation proposal for a major insurance client when my sister Madison calls from downstairs, her voice carrying the sing-song tone she uses when she's about to say something she thinks is clever. "Avery, come show everyone your vintage decor choices. Mom wants to take pictures for her Instagram before we eat." The words hit me like ice water because I know exactly what kind of pictures she's planning to take and why. Have you ever felt like your personal sacrifices have become invisible to the very people who benefit from them most? For 3 years, I've been quietly funding the systematic renovation of my parents' 1970s split-level house, transforming it from tired suburban standard into the kind of showcase property that gets featured in Minneapolis lifestyle magazines. The granite countertops in the kitchen, the hardwood floors throughout the main level, the master bathroom that looks like a spa retreat, the finished basement with its built-in entertainment center. Every upgrade has been carefully planned, professionally installed, and silently paid for with my consulting bonuses and quarterly performance incentives. The decision to fund these renovations hadn't been complicated. My parents, both retired teachers living on fixed incomes, had been struggling with basic maintenance issues when I started my career at Sterling Consulting 3 years ago. The furnace needed replacement, the roof was leaking, and the carpet throughout the house had reached the point where professional cleaning couldn't mask decades of wear. My signing bonus from Sterling had been substantial enough to address the immediate problems, and my subsequent performance bonuses provided opportunities to tackle more ambitious improvements. What started as practical necessity, replacing failing systems and worn-out fixtures, evolved into a comprehensive home transformation project that I managed like one of my corporate consulting engagements. I researched contractors, obtained multiple bids, coordinated schedules, and ensured that every renovation met the kind of quality standards I'd learned to demand in my professional work. The total investment over 3 years has been approximately $127,000, not including the ongoing maintenance and utility improvements I continue to fund. The only space that remained untouched was my childhood bedroom, and that decision was entirely strategic. My parents had suggested updating it along with the rest of the house, but I'd insisted on leaving it as is for 2 important reasons. First, the renovation budget I'd allocated was already stretched across the most important improvements, and a bedroom I used maybe 6 times per year seemed like an unnecessary expense. Second, and more importantly, I wanted to maintain some connection to the house's history and my own childhood memories. But somewhere along the way, my family's understanding of these financial arrangements had become selectively edited. They'd grown accustomed to living in their beautifully renovated home while treating my unchanged bedroom as evidence of my poor decision-making rather than my financial prioritization of their comfort over my own. The cognitive dissonance was remarkable. They enjoyed the benefits of my generosity while simultaneously using the most visible evidence of my sacrifice as material for family humor. My brother Tyler's voice drifts up from the kitchen, explaining to someone, probably his girlfriend Emma, why my room looks like a time capsule from 2003. His commentary is followed by Madison's laugh and what sounds like my mother agreeing that Avery's always been stubborn about change. The irony is so complete, it's almost artistic. The family living in a house I renovated is mocking the one room I chose not to renovate, while attributing my choices to character flaws rather than financial sacrifice. I close my laptop and head toward the staircase, knowing that this Thanksgiving dinner is likely to include the same gentle mockery about my vintage living situation that's become a family tradition. The difference is that this time, I'm carrying my phone with access to 3 years of bank records, contractor receipts, and payment confirmations that tell a very different story about who's been making the real decisions about this house's transformation. What happens when the people who benefit most from your generosity mistake your sacrifice for your failure? The dining room buzzes with the comfortable chaos of a family gathering as I make my way downstairs, passing the gallery wall of professional family photos that replaced the collection of mismatched frames that used to hang in the hallway. Emma, Tyler's girlfriend of 8 months, is admiring the crown molding that was installed last spring. Crown molding I'd specifically selected after researching architectural details that would complement the house's mid-century bones while adding contemporary elegance. "This house is absolutely gorgeous," Emma tells my mother, running her hand along the custom built-in buffet that houses my mother's china collection. "The renovations are so thoughtfully done. You must have used an amazing contractor." My mother beams with the pride of someone accepting compliments for excellent taste, nodding toward my father who's carving the turkey with the kind of precision that suggests he's enjoying his role as master of this beautifully appointed domain. "We've been working on updates for a few years now," my mother replies, the pronoun choice hitting me like a small but significant blow. Richard has such a good eye for these things, and we've been so fortunate to finally have the resources to make the improvements we've always wanted. The casual rewriting of history is breathtaking in its completeness. My parents have apparently convinced themselves that their teacher pensions and Social Security somehow funded $127,000 in home renovations. Tyler gestures toward the staircase with his wine glass, grinning with the mischievous energy that's been his trademark since childhood. "Wait until you see Avery's room, Em. It's like a shrine to the early 2000s. She's got the same furniture from when she was 15, and I think that bedspread might be older than our relationship." His observation is technically accurate, but the context he's omitting, that every other room in this house exists in its current beautiful state because I chose to prioritize their comfort over updating my temporary bedroom, transforms his humor into something that feels more like betrayal. Madison joins the commentary from her position near the kitchen island that I selected from a high-end supplier in downtown Minneapolis. "Seriously, Avery, we keep waiting for you to do something about that room. It's like you're stuck in a time warp while the rest of us have moved into the 21st century." Her words carry the loving condescension that older siblings perfect over decades, but there's an edge of genuine puzzlement that suggests she's genuinely confused by my choices rather than maliciously mocking them. The conversation continues around me as I stand in the beautifully renovated space that represents months of my consultation calls with contractors, hours spent researching fixtures and finishes, and a significant percentage of my professional income over the past 3 years. Emma asks about the kitchen backsplash, handcrafted subway tiles from an artisan supplier I'd found through my network of Minneapolis design professionals. Tyler compliments the living room's built-in entertainment center, which required custom millwork to accommodate the room's unusual dimensions. Each compliment directed toward my parents feels like a small theft, not because I need recognition for every financial contribution, but because their comfort accepting credit for improvements they didn't fund reveals something troubling about how they understand our family's financial dynamics. They've seamlessly incorporated my contributions into their narrative of personal success while treating the most visible evidence of my sacrifice, my unchanged bedroom, as a character flaw worthy of public commentary. You know what the funniest part is? Madison continues, warming to her theme while she arranges the green bean casserole in the serving dish I bought during last year's kitchen renovation. Avery makes all this money as a consultant, but she lives like she's still a broke college student. Same furniture, same decorations, same everything. It's like she's afraid of growing up. The psychological analysis stings because it's both completely wrong and impossible to correct without revealing the financial information I've been protecting. My father looks up from his turkey carving duties, his expression carrying the bemused affection he's always shown for what he considers my eccentricities. Avery's always been practical with money, almost too practical, if you ask me. Sometimes you've got to spend a little to improve your quality of life. The advice comes from someone currently enjoying granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and custom cabinetry that I researched, selected, and funded, but who apparently sees no irony in counseling me about the importance of strategic spending. If you've ever been lectured about financial priorities by people who are currently benefiting from your financial sacrifices, you know the specific kind of cognitive dissonance that builds in your chest like pressure in a steam valve. The conversation around me continues to celebrate their beautiful home while critiquing my living situation, with no apparent awareness of the connection between these two realities. The breaking point approaches as Emma asks the question I've been dreading. Emma's curiosity gets the better of her as she glances between the beautiful renovated spaces and the staircase leading to my apparently time-warped bedroom. I have to ask, and I hope this isn't rude, but how did you guys afford all these amazing renovations? Teaching doesn't usually come with this kind of budget for home improvements. Her question hangs in the air with the innocent directness of someone who hasn't yet learned the complex financial dynamics that govern this family's beautiful lifestyle. The silence that follows Emma's question stretches just long enough to become uncomfortable. My mother's face shifts through several micro-expressions: surprise, consideration, and then a kind of creative problem-solving look that suggests she's calculating how to answer without revealing information she apparently considers private. My father sets down his carving knife and adopts the measured tone he used during parent-teacher conferences when explaining complicated situations to concerned families. Well, we've been very fortunate, my father begins, his voice carrying the vague authority of someone who's about to provide an explanation that doesn't quite explain anything. We've been careful with our money over the years, and when some opportunities presented themselves, we decided it was time to invest in our home. The phrase "opportunities presented themselves" is doing remarkable linguistic work to avoid mentioning that the opportunity in question was my consulting career and my decision to prioritize their comfort over my own expenses. Madison jumps in with the kind of helpful elaboration that makes situations worse rather than better. Plus, Mom and Dad have always been really smart about financial planning. They saved up for years to do these renovations properly instead of doing cheap fixes that would need to be redone later. Her confidence in this narrative is so complete that I wonder if she's genuinely forgotten the timeline of these improvements, or if the family mythology has become more comfortable than the actual facts. Tyler nods with brotherly support while he examines the custom light fixture above the dining table, a piece I'd selected after researching artisan glassblowers in the Twin Cities area. Yeah, they did it the right way. Saved up, planned carefully, hired good contractors. That's why everything looks so professional instead of like some DIY disaster. His praise for their planning and execution feels particularly ironic, coming from someone who'd spent last Christmas complaining about his student loan payments while sitting in a kitchen I'd funded. I feel something crystallizing in my chest, like a chemical reaction reaching its activation energy. The moment has arrived where I need to decide between maintaining the comfortable fiction that's allowed my family to accept my financial support without acknowledging it, or speaking the truth that will fundamentally alter how we understand our relationships and obligations to each other. The weight of 3 years of silent generosity sits heavy in my throat, demanding recognition not for ego's sake, but for the sake of honesty about who has been sacrificing what for whom. Actually, I say, my voice carrying a steadiness that surprises me, I'd like to clarify something about these renovations. The tone of my interruption creates an immediate shift in the room's energy. Conversations pause, wine glasses stop moving toward mouths, and I have the suddenly undivided attention of everyone gathered around the table I purchased during the dining room renovation 18 months ago. The mahogany surface reflects the light from the chandelier I researched and selected, creating an almost theatrical setting for the conversation I've been avoiding. Emma looks between me and my parents with the expression of someone who's beginning to sense that she's stumbled into a more complex situation than she'd realized. Tyler's confident smile wavers slightly, and Madison's helpful explanatory energy transforms into something more cautious. My parents exchange a look that suggests they're both hoping this conversation heads in a direction other than where it's obviously going, but the momentum has shifted beyond their ability to redirect. Emma asked how they afforded these renovations. I continue, pulling out my phone with deliberate precision. And I think she deserves an accurate answer. My fingers navigate to my banking app with the muscle memory of someone who's been tracking these expenses meticulously for 3 years. The Wells Fargo interface loads, revealing account summaries that tell a very different story about the financial dynamics of this beautiful home than the one my family has been telling themselves and others. The anticipation in the room builds like pressure in a steam engine as I prepare to share information that will fundamentally change how everyone at this table understands the relationship between sacrifice and recognition, between gratitude and entitlement, between the person who pays and the people who benefit. The kitchen renovation last year cost $47,000, I announce, scrolling through my transaction history while my family processes this shift from gentle mockery to financial documentation. The hardwood floors throughout the main level were $23,000. The master bathroom renovation was $31,000, and the basement finishing project came to $19,000. Would you like me to continue with the smaller projects, or should I skip to the total? My voice carries the professional precision I use during client presentations. but there's an underlying current of 3 years' worth of accumulated frustration finally finding its outlet. Emma's fork stops halfway to her mouth as she processes what I've just revealed, her eyes moving around the dining room with new understanding of the financial dynamics she's just witnessed. "Wait," she says slowly, "you paid for all of these renovations." Her question cuts through the tension with the clarity of someone who hasn't been participating in years of carefully constructed family mythology about how retired teachers afford luxury home improvements. Tyler's confident demeanor crumbles like expensive wallpaper exposed to moisture. "Avery, what are you talking about? Mom and Dad have been planning these renovations for years." His protest carries the desperation of someone whose understanding of family financial dynamics is being challenged in real time. The cognitive dissonance is visible on his face as he tries to reconcile the beautiful home he's been taking for granted with the revelation that his sister has been funding their parents' lifestyle upgrades while living in what he's been mocking as a time capsule. "Actually, Tyler, they haven't been planning anything," I reply, turning my phone screen toward the table to display the detailed transaction history that documents 3 years of home renovation expenses. "I've been planning, researching contractors, managing timelines, and funding everything you see in this house. The only planning Mom and Dad did was saying yes when I asked if they wanted improvements. Tia, the bank records tell an unmistakable story of systematic financial support that transforms their narrative of careful savings into something closer to comfortable fiction." My mother finally finds her voice, though it comes out smaller than her usual confident tone. "Avery, honey, we never asked you to—" She stops mid-sentence, apparently realizing that any attempt to minimize my contributions will be contradicted by the documented evidence I'm currently displaying. Her expression shifts from defensive to genuinely confused, as if she's trying to understand how accepting my financial support evolved into taking credit for the improvements and using my unchanged bedroom as evidence of my poor life choices. Madison sets down her wine glass with the careful precision of someone trying to process information that fundamentally changes her understanding of recent family history. "But you never said anything about paying for this stuff. We just thought—" "I mean, you were involved in planning, but we assumed Mom and Dad were handling the financial part." Her confusion seems genuine, which makes me wonder if my family's mythology about these renovations has become so entrenched that they've genuinely forgotten the actual source of funding, or if they've simply found it more comfortable to avoid examining the details too closely. I chose not to make a big deal about the financial arrangements because I didn't want every family gathering to become a discussion about money, I explain, scrolling through more transaction records that show the methodical way I've been transforming their living environment. But I also didn't expect that my discretion would be interpreted as evidence that I'm somehow failing at basic life skills while you're all living in a house I renovated. The irony hangs in the air like expensive perfume. My generosity had been reframed as my inadequacy. Emma asks the question that everyone else has been avoiding. "So, when you all were joking about Avery's room being outdated, she was actually choosing not to spend money on herself because she was spending it on the rest of the house?" Her outsider's perspective cuts straight to the heart of the situation with surgical precision. The uncomfortable shifting around the table suggests that my family is beginning to understand how their gentle mockery looks when viewed through the lens of actual financial sacrifice. My father clears his throat with the authority of someone trying to regain control of a situation that spiraled beyond his management. "Avery, we're grateful for your help, but you have to understand that we didn't realize you were keeping such detailed records of everything." His words reveal the assumption that my contributions were gifts rather than documented sacrifices, and that my silence about costs was meant to be permanent rather than temporary. "I keep records of everything, Dad. It's literally part of my job to track financial details and measure return on investment." I scrolled to the final total, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness as I prepare to share the number that represents 3 years of prioritizing my family's comfort over my own. The total amount I've invested in this house over 3 years is $127,000. That's why my room looks like a time capsule, because I've been spending my money on making your lives more comfortable instead of updating a space I use 6 times per year. The silence that follows my revelation feels different from the earlier pauses. This one carries the weight of a family recalculating everything they thought they knew about sacrifice, generosity, and who deserves credit for the beautiful life they've been living. 3 years later, my childhood bedroom finally received its long overdue renovation, but more importantly, my family learned to appreciate sacrifice before it becomes invisible. The conversation that began with mockery of my time capsule bedroom ended with a fundamental shift in how we discuss contributions, gratitude, and the difference between choosing not to spend money on yourself and being unable to afford improvements. Sometimes the most powerful revelations happen when you finally decide to show your receipts. The immediate aftermath of that Thanksgiving dinner required several difficult but necessary conversations about family financial dynamics and assumptions. My parents, to their credit, insisted on reviewing every transaction I documented and calculating a repayment plan that would acknowledge my contributions while restoring some balance to our financial relationship. "We never intended to take advantage of your generosity," my mother said during our follow-up coffee meeting the next week, "but we realized that accepting help without acknowledging it properly was exactly what we were doing." Tyler and Madison both apologized for their commentary about my living situation, admitting they'd never considered that my unchanged bedroom was evidence of financial prioritization rather than personal stagnation. "I feel like such an ass," Tyler confessed during a one-on-one conversation a few days later. "You were literally paying for the kitchen where I was sitting when I made jokes about your furniture." His genuine embarrassment opened the door to more honest discussions about family dynamics and who contributes what to our collective well-being. The $127,000 revelation became a catalyst for broader conversations about family financial responsibility and communication. We established clearer boundaries around financial support, with explicit discussions about what constitutes a gift versus a loan, and regular check-ins to ensure that generosity doesn't become an invisible expectation. My parents now contribute what they can toward ongoing maintenance costs, and my siblings have become more aware of the financial dynamics that shape our family gatherings. My bedroom renovation, when it finally happened, felt different from the previous projects because it was funded jointly and acknowledged openly. My parents contributed their planned vacation budget, Tyler and Madison pooled resources to cover the new furniture, and I handled the structural improvements and professional design costs. The collaborative approach created something more meaningful than just updated decor. It represented a family that had learned to discuss money, sacrifice, and gratitude without shame or assumption. The sterling consulting career that had made these renovations possible has continued to flourish, partly because the experience taught me valuable lessons about documenting value and communicating contributions clearly. I no longer assume that good work speaks for itself or that sacrifice will be automatically recognized and appreciated. In both professional and personal contexts, I've learned the importance of making contributions visible rather than hoping they'll be noticed and valued appropriately. Emma, Tyler's girlfriend who'd asked the innocent question that started everything, has become a trusted family friend whose outsider perspective continues to help us navigate complex dynamics with more honesty and less assumption. You guys have gotten so much better at actually talking about important stuff instead of dancing around it, she observed during last Christmas's gathering in the newly renovated house, where every room now tells a story of collaborative investment rather than invisible sacrifice. The financial tracking habits I developed during the renovation years have transformed into a broader approach to life that values transparency over martyrdom and communication over assumption. I still contribute to family expenses when appropriate, but now those contributions are discussed, acknowledged, and reciprocated when possible. The relationship feels more balanced because everyone understands who's doing what and why. My parents' house has become a source of genuine family pride rather than complicated financial dynamics disguised as gratitude. When visitors compliment the renovations, the conversations now include accurate information about how the improvements were funded and managed. The house tells the true story of a family that learned to work together rather than a false narrative about careful savings and solo planning. The experience taught me something profound about the relationship between sacrifice and recognition. Choosing to remain anonymous about your contributions isn't always noble. Sometimes it enables other people to take credit for your work while treating your visible limitations as character flaws. True generosity includes helping people understand the actual cost of what they're receiving so they can appreciate it appropriately and reciprocate when possible. What would change in your relationships if everyone understood the true cost of what they're receiving from others? The most valuable renovation in my family wasn't any single room. It was the transformation of our ability to discuss money, sacrifice, and gratitude with honesty instead of comfortable fiction. Sometimes the best gift you can give people is helping them see the full picture of what they've been taking for granted, so they can choose to be genuinely grateful instead of accidentally entitled.